Hey guys, welcome to Monifactory Progression Log number 13. First off, I'm sorry this video is late. I did wake up very late. I didn't sleep so well last night, so here we are though. And before we go ahead and get started, I do have a short little clip that I would like to insert in. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that in here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Hey guys, I'm just gonna do a quick voiceover in post over over this clip. Unfortunately, OBS didn't record my mic at the time, and I can't exactly go back in time to re-record the clip. So here we are. I'm just pretty close. This is when I was getting Heart of the Universe. It was about like 1 in the morning on like Thursday or so, or I guess Friday technically. So this was a day or two ago, depending on how you look at it. um, but yeah, so I had set up T10 Miner, and that was a really big push. That was a lot of work, and I'm happy to have been done for it. It took me 440 hours to get this, which is a significant time investment. I do know that there are other people who've played on this server. I think had about 120 in total, 140 in total, around that mark. So in total it was like what, 580 hours or so to hit tank, which is about the time it took us combined or so to complete ATM 9. It took us about 600, a little less than what it took to complete ATM 9. I had 24 days at the end of ATM 9. Obviously, we're not done with this pack. We still have Quantum Chest, which I'll go over later. But yeah, so we're about to get Heart of the Universe, which is how you get quantum tank data. And once you get that, the whole base fundamentally changes. I did kind of briefly touch on this in the last video, but lots and lots of infrastructure effectively gets ripped out. Fusion goes away, all of Petrochem goes away, most LCRs go away, ABSs go away, EBFs go away, and there we go. Heart of the Universe. It's done. I'm just gonna take a quick little screenshot of that. Um, and man, Heart of the Universe. Well, now we can set up tank and stuff. The clip will goes on normally for a while, and I guess I can just continue talking over it for a little bit. Effectively, so we have to use a subatomic digital assembler and the extract. So we use the extractor to get the data, and then we use a subatomic digital assembler to actually craft the data. And I should have already have those things encoded. Unfortunately, it's a little bit strange, and it doesn't actually work at the time. I have to do a little bit of debugging, and normally I don't play on camera. I'm usually doing something else while I am playing, like watching TV or listening to music. So I don't normally, do things on camera. It's normally like, a great overview of what I've been doing. But I guess we might as well go over and, do a little bit of live gameplay just for fun's sake. So the subatomic digital assembler was a very interesting multi-block to build and kind of expensive. You need lots of triniquad alloy for it, and I made multiple mistakes down here and not setting it up. I forgot to power the actual multi-block itself. I forgot to actually connect it to the network switch, as you do need 64 computational units per tick in order to make the infinity cell base, which is more than what you can get from a single computer or a single HPCA. The most you can get is 48. So we do need two. So I have to connect it up from the network switch. Then I also have to power it. And the problem actually turns out to be I didn't power the HPCAs properly. I didn't give them enough power. I gave them 1 amp ZPM energy hatches instead of the 4 amp ones they actually needed. Yeah, so this one is powered now, and it's still not working because it's flickering in and out because the HPCAs aren't actually producing a consistent amount of computational units per tick. It looks like it will complete, but it actually won't because the HPCAs are flickering. It's not obvious in the multi-block itself, other than how it's it's how it's just constantly changing. Another issue I had was I didn't set all the different input buses to I didn't set them to be separate buses, so they're all one bus with different circuits. Because I didn't realize when I was setting it up that the data was not consumed, so I assumed it was a one and done kind of thing. So it would pull it in based on the circuit number, it would create a thing, um, and that's not actually how it works. It doesn't consume the data to make the infinity cell bases. As you can see here, it's like flickering in and out because it does want 322,000 EU a tick, which is just under, it's like 3 amps of ZPM, 2.5 or so. And yeah, it's like 2.5, 3 amps of ZPM. So unfortunately, it's not enough to give it just a single ZPM energy hatch. So it'll take me a little bit to actually figure that out. I guess we can go ahead and like this is what GregTech is. It's a lot of build, test, build, test. It's a lot of, build and test and then debug and test and stuff. And sometimes the most important part, or I guess I should say, the most important part of solving any problem is rather than figuring out the solution, it's actually figuring out what is actually wrong in the first place. As in multi-blocks often don't really give you a lot of feedback. And why they're not working. Like especially if it's like an incomplete structure, it'll just say it's broken, and you won't really know why. Maybe there's an extra block somewhere, maybe it's missing a block somewhere. It's never really easy to tell, and especially with some setups, it can also be kind of hard to tell as well. Because sometimes like I said, like your feedback is fairly limited. Um, Generally here, how you can kind of tell that the problem is the energy hatch is how both energy hatches are very low on power. If they're giving the multi-block enough power, they should be full or nearly full or empty completely. It's either one or the other. They shouldn't be like partially filled with power. So that's one little tip there. Especially since it was flickering a lot. That's one way to tell as well. But there we go. Here we go. We're gonna get our very first. It might take a moment. Especially this is where I'm going to figure out that they're not on distinct buses. I just wanted to double check the circuit number here as well because at this stage I was still kind of worried that it would consume the data for the wrong one. I was kind of okay with that as long as I could get Omnium, which is the important part. That would, because I assumed it would consume it, we could make Omnium, which was the most expensive part of the T10 miner, and then we could send more if we had to. That wasn't really the case. It turns out it's not consumed, so you can just like let it run. And this was another problem. I was confused about why it wasn't doing it, because right now it thinks it's pulling from. It's because they're not on distinct buses. It's very confused. But once I set it to distinct buses, it works. There we go. Figured it out. QuickTech's a lot of fun. I really enjoy this this build test, build, or the build test, debug test. I love this cycle, and I love putting together all these different systems and stuff. So there we go. The recipe's working now. Normally it would be 1600 seconds, I think, with the minimum. Or I think the reason why it's giving you a timer instead of it's because it's not actually based on time. It's based on computation. And JEI, or I guess it's actually Jade that does that. Jade doesn't actually tell you for that block what the computational works, or for how much computation it needs. It does it for research stations, but it doesn't do it for the subatomic digital assembler. Yeah, but that's when I figured out it doesn't consume it, and I'm very happy about that, because that means I don't have to send a bunch of T10 miners, and I can just leave that running for a while, and we can really start, grinding away, pulling a bunch of drives out, which is what I'll go over in the rest of the video. So that's more or less the clip. I know it normally would go on for a little while longer, but I don't really feel like voicing all over all like 14 minutes of it or something. I'm sorry about how scuffed this came out to be. I didn't realize that OBS wasn't recording. Actually, it was NVIDIA at the time. I believe I was using NVIDIA over OBS, and NVIDIA decided it didn't really feel like recording my voice. And I can't, like I said, I can't exactly go back in time and re-record. No time machine here. GregTech has many multi-blocks. A time machine is not one of them, unfortunately. I'm sure that would help a lot, probably. I don't know. I'd have to see what recipes would be part of a time machine. That would be an interesting multi-block. Huh. Anyway, so yeah, you guys got to see some live gameplay. Very rare. Very rare. Never seen before on this channel, I think. Oh man, I'm so glad we have tank. It's a lot of fun. You guys are gonna see in just a minute or two, or whenever I'm finished done with this. um, how many changes there've been? There's been some significant changes to the base. It's been a lot of fun, and I still have a lot more work to do. Actually, we're moving into a new age, post tank age, which is like I've mentioned many times before, and I will mention many times in the future, is a fundamental change of how the base works and how you deal with production and stuff. It doesn't like having unlimited of every fluid means you can rip out many. We ripped out, I think, in total, probably most of the base. But I won't get too much into that. I'll go ahead and let the rest of the video play out, and you guys can watch that. Um, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Post me will now hand it over to, I guess, at the time, current me, but that's past me. So, I don't know. Alright, guys. Well, have fun. Alright, guys. I hope that was a very informative clip, and I'm glad you saw it. I can't believe we've done it. We have made it. We've made it. We're post-tank. We're living in a post-tank world, which is why I removed all the fluids and items and stuff off all the storage monitors, because we have unlimited of everything that matters. And I guess we can go over and talk about where the drives are first. So I set this up, this drive bay up a couple weeks ago. And this side was used for partition drives and stuff. And originally that was just for things that I had a lot of, that I didn't really want, that were in bulk, and I didn't really feel like putting in drawers. So, lots of stuff over here. But this was also the perfect spot to put all the infinity fluid drives. And I've been quite busy over the last day or so, filling in tons and tons of fluids. You'll notice these are the other drives and stuff. That's from ripping out some subnut stuff. I'll show you guys that as well. But we have a lot of infinity cells. We have a lot. And if I just come over here, you can see we have virtually every fluid that exists as long as it's useful. We don't have a lot of like chemical precursors and stuff. Like, for example, PBI has a bunch of chemical precursors like dichlorobenzene, for example. Uh, and like this stuff is in particular, or this is actually used in polyphenylene sulfide. Maybe it's dichlorobenzidine. Yeah. And then like all this stuff are precursors that are only used in the chain to make polybenzoidyl, PBI. But we don't actually need them for that because PBI is a fluid, so we can just have infinite of that instead. So we don't have a lot of interim, precursors or intermediate steps because there's no point. And it's less about spending, the drive because they're free, and more of spending the drive space because it's a little, whatever. Even though I have plenty of, room for drives and stuff, I just didn't really feel like there's no point, especially since it's never gonna get used. And I guess you guys saw that through the window. Actually, we're gonna go ahead and use the bridge for the first time in ever. I still have to do lots of decorative work, but yeah. So I ripped out petrochem. None of it. We don't need any of it anymore. I still might want to set up fertilizer, some other way. As we do use it for. I still have the greenhouse running. Oh, this one isn't running, but we use it in. It's used in making some thermal phytogenic insulators. They get used in that as to buff it up. So I do kind of want to set up for that, but it'll probably be just a single block machine somewhere because we don't need any of the fluids. But this was just something that I used to drain all the various drives as we didn't need them anymore, and instead of just throwing them away, I wanted to keep the 256K components. So we have a bunch of them now, so we can make some more drives if I have to. So yeah, so I just wanted to recycle all those things, and you can't empty them if they have stuff. You can't like shift right click and clear them if they have something in them. So yeah, I removed Petrochem 1, most of Petrochem 2, everything except the greenhouse has been stripped out. I've stripped out a lot of things. So we'll come over to, before I get into all the ones that I ripped out, I guess we'll come over here to research. I finally got around to, I was able to make the network switch so we can do all the multiple computers as it was required for several of the things we needed to do. I believe UV energy hatch actually needed that. I'm pretty sure UV energy hatch needed more than one. Yeah, it needed 64, and the most you can get into a single one is 48 computation a tick. In one that's bridging, it's 36. You can't get any more than this. This is exactly heat neutral. So you get 336 for a total of 96. So we have enough for most things at this stage, though I do have room, obviously, for 2 more computers. And obviously I don't need these EBS anymore, so I can always rip these out for some more stuff. I did add some single block machines here for some various things. Like this is where I'm moving. I moved the ultimate assembler here. This is where I made the titanium, the first voltage coils, because you have to build the single block assembler before you can build the energy hatch, so you can upgrade the multi-block one. We have the scanner here, and then we just have an extractor here. I use this to just manually, make a bucket of each fluid, so I could use it in a drive. There hasn't been too many other changes. Oh, actually, no, just there is another change down here that I do want to talk about that I kind of briefly glossed over, actually. In here, I rebuilt the assembly lines. So before they had individual data hatches and stuff, so it meant each assembler can only do some recipes. However, UV energy hatch requires a data model, and data models or data modules can only go in data banks. They can't go in assembly line data hatches. So I had to set up a data bank and stuff here, and that means that any one of these assembly lines could do any recipe. So I instead came down here and I swapped the assembly lines over to a subnet. So all 3 assembly lines are on a P2P subnet with using pattern P2Ps. So AE will automatically parallelize any of the recipes here. So if I order a bunch of something, it can do multiple at once. So it makes it a lot faster, and it's pretty good now. So I'm very happy about that. They also all have UV energy hatches, so they're all running at UHV, and they're very expensive power-wise. I also just set up this on demand. It really didn't take any effort at all. It was just using an import bus here and then a pattern provider on the drawer, and it works just fine. I do have it set to just skulk cores, so if I want to set up another recipe somewhere, I'd have to set up another charger, but I don't know if there's anything else you actually really need to do in the charger. Yeah, it's actually the only recipe that's done in the Skulk charger, so that's fine. I could probably set that up on passive, but it's a lot of power, and we don't really need that much of it, and it's not particularly slow either, so it's not really the slowest thing in the craft anyway. Over here we have the subatomic digital assembler. You guys saw this. Right now I have this turned off because I don't really want to make any more infinity cell bases at the moment anyway. So I just have that turned off because I don't really want to run the power. Even though we don't really need the power, there's no point in wasting it. So we just have all this stuff set up here. You guys already saw this, but especially since I had to debug it live. That was fun though. I don't really, like I said before, I don't really record while I play because I'm always usually listening to music or watching TV or something. So I don't really record while I'm playing games. I don't know if I've actually done any other upgrades over here besides, upgrade them to UV recipe tier and stuff. So I do need to get around to rebuilding on demand a little bit more. Get some more upgrades in there, clean up some recipes and stuff. It's a little bit scuffed over there. It's pretty good, but it's a little bit scuffed. We do have the implosion compressor over here as well. This is to make omnium nuggets, though we don't really need it anymore, considering we have unlimited amounts of liquid omnium. Over here, I started adding some more generators. I started adding some more Naquita reactors. I haven't really set them up yet because we don't really need them at this stage. We're very, very good on power, especially since I was able to rip out tons and tons of infrastructure. It's fine, so we don't really need any more power at this stage. Maybe we will need more power at a later date, but for now it's fine. I haven't really done any changes over at HNN either, or over here. I still have this running, even though I can actually rip all of these things out. I can rip out the deep slate, I can rip out all this maceration stuff, because this was all made for deep slate line for fluorine and oxygen gas, which obviously we don't need anymore. I can also remove those mining rigs and stuff that are on a couple of different planets, because obviously we don't need those anymore either. So we have lots of infrastructure that I can still rip out. I haven't gotten around to all of it. But I have pulled some things out, like mixers over here. I haven't added any more machines yet, as in I'm still rebuilding. I'm not gonna try and add any more stuff over here until I'm more sure of what will actually go over here, because I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys in a minute of what I've done over there. Like, I can actually rip this out. I should. Here, I'll just go ahead and pull this out. Anything that produces a fluid, for example, it just goes away. So like this stuff goes away. This makes the yeah, so this can go away. We need that one. So, you know, we have, let's see, I don't know what this one does. What does this one do? Oh, this one recycles magnesium chloride, which we don't make anymore. So I can rip that one out too, for example. I can rip this one out. So this is what the last couple has pretty much been since I got Tank, has just been running around, figuring out what I can tear out, and then tearing that out. So it's been a lot of demo work, which has been satisfying, extremely satisfying. So we'll actually go over to the EBFs for now. And I ripped out most of the EBFs, mostly because I wanted to. It felt kind of good to rip them all out. I don't know what I'm going to put over here for now. I might redesignate this for the rotary hearth furnace and, you know, mess around with the floor planning here. I might like connect these two blocks and set this up for the rotary hearth furnace, as that's pretty large. I'm pretty sure it's the largest multi-block in the game, unless you're playing GTNH, but we're not playing GTNH. I recently ordered the tea mix I had again. I don't know if you guys were watching during Mechanical Mastery, but I was usually making myself a cup of tea before recording, and I got myself the tea mix again. It actually reminds me a lot of Mechanical Mastery. It's very nice. Every time I take a little sip of it, I remember getting up in the mornings and recording some Mechanical Mastery videos. Mechanical Mastery is a fun pack. I'll have to go back to it at some point. Very, very tasty stuff. And the things that actually, I left the whole EBF block because I didn't really feel like leaving only one EBF here. So the whole thing has been designated for EBFs, as we will actually need some stuff later on. There's some things like terbium, for example, that's used in some higher UEV or UIV, I believe. And this stuff can't actually be liquidized. It's all item only. So, like, there are some fluids used in crafting it, but nothing that actually, like, matters. So we can't, like, extract this or anything and turn it into a liquid and then, not have to use the EBFs. So, we'll have to use some EBFs later on. Post-tank, there are plenty of things that don't have any liquids that are important in them. So I decided to leave at least one block. I'm sure there'll be plenty of things. I can actually go ahead and, like, right now we're still using the Naquita doped wafers. We can definitely do neutronium at least. I'm not sure if we can do the universe doped wafers yet. Yeah, not really. We can make the omnium coils. That won't be so bad. It's mostly just putting Heart of the Universes on passive, which I guess we could do. That wouldn't be too bad. But that'd be something I'll have to take a look at. Something we can definitely think about. And over here, where the ABSs were, we have the big fluid solidifier array, as well as a bunch of other things. Right now we're doing, we have lathes over here. The idea is to lathe every rod in the game, even if we don't use them for anything, because I think it was funny. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Then I'm gonna set up, like, gears, small gears, I'm gonna set up plates for sure. Pipes probably is, pipes and gears, small gears. We have lots of components that I want to put on passive. It'll take a lot of strain off our on-demand system. So, like, I know I just mentioned the upgrading on-demand system, though that might just be as simple as replacing some multi-blocks, as in the whole idea is to have every, rod, so we won't really need the lathe anymore. Might switch that over to the cutter or rip out entirely, and again with the bender as well. There's still a few things that we might want to do on demand, so we'll have to take a look at removing the bender, but I think the lathe will probably get removed at a certain point. But yeah, so we have a ton of ingots here, and we buffer 145,000 of each one. So we can come down here and we can see all our different ingots. I haven't done every single ingot yet. I think there's a couple more that I have to do. I can take a look at ingot. We still have some. You might actually, maybe Damascus steel I want to do. I'm not exactly sure. But it seems like I have most of the ingots done. I tried to finish that up last night. I know we have rubber ingots here, but we don't really need rubber ingots. Can tough alloy be? Nope. tough alloy. Like for example, graphene can't be done either. I might do conductive iron, though we don't really use conductive iron for much. Like a game with Damascus steel. Uh, what is this? Can we actually make this? No. Okay, I didn't encode this. Um, so yeah, we've got we're pretty good on ingots now at this stage, considering we have unlimited amount of them. Over here, I'm also gonna set up stabilized various isotopes or whatever, and maybe even the solidified gases that we use a lot of, like argon, which gets used in drills and stuff, or micro miners, for instance. Um, we'll have to take a look at like the exact amount of things that are going to be over here, but I don't think it'll take too much longer. But I did spend hours on setting this up. We still have plenty of things to set up over here. What was really funny is I had set up, I don't even know if you guys saw the ABSs over here. That might have been set up and then removed within the week. However, I had set up 3 tritanium ABSs with their own vacuum freezer, and they were on their own subnet and stuff. And I only ever used one of them before I hit tank. So I have a bunch of extra coils. Like, we have tons and tons of coils. So I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do with all of them. Probably nothing and just let them stay there. Especially since we can make the omnium coils at this stage. Which are the best coil in the game. We do need to set up the Omnic Forge soon, which is another multi-block. We can actually do this. We have ZPM field emitters, UV circuits, we have Omnium stuff. So yeah, this is a Monifactory specific multi-block, and it does some stuff, namely related to Omnium. It also does some other things, like I think it also does like flux plates. Like you can make flux infused plating, you can either craft it, or you can put it in the Omnic Forge, and I'm not exactly sure why it has an Omnic Forge recipe, because it produces the same amount for the same amount of resources. This just takes power and is slower. I assume the crafting recipe is from, like normal mode, and Omnic is probably for either hard or expert mode, so you have to get, the Omnic Forge before you can actually, make the flux thrusters, which are used in, the warp engines. And these get used in making the very higher tier drills. So like tier 7 and higher would use that. So I guess that probably is an expert mode thing. Yeah. Man, I also in higher modes, like expert mode doesn't have tank either. Well, I guess in our case it's fluid drives. But it doesn't have tank, which sounds insane and a little bit hideous and a little bit cool, I guess. I also over here ripped out all these the vacuum freezers and stuff because they were making liquid ender air, liquid nether air, liquid air, and tritium, none of which we need anymore, because they're all liquids. So I don't know exactly what's going to go over here. I know there's a bunch of long setups, like we have active netherite line we have to do, and we have some terbium line we have to do. So it's really good that we were able to rip out a lot of infrastructure, so we can reuse those spaces for things we actually need to do a lot of, that need a lot of space. So without having to do any more base expansion. I'm sure we'll have to do some more base expansion at some point or another. I just don't know when. If we come over here, we have, I did wetware circuits. I don't know if I set this up, if you guys saw this last week. The whole week's been kind of like a super grind blur, like a turbo grind. Well, Wednesday Plus has been a turbo grind. I did take a small 2-day break. I could tell I was getting a little bit burned out and coding a bunch of recipes for T10. I started getting like really annoyed about like playing the game, and I was like, okay. I was like, man, I just really want to be done right now. And I'm like, oh no, that's not good. That's a bad feeling. So I just took a 2-day break to go play some other games. But I can remove a bunch of stuff in here as well. Actually, this just reminded me of a setup I had in Petrochem 2. I didn't realize you could make fish via the H&N for a while, so I actually set up a GregTech Fisher. Originally it was at IV, and then it was at LUV, and this was because this makes fish, and this was how I was making fish to get mincemeat, because you need mincemeat as part of like the whole stem cell line and the neuroprocessor line. You use it also in some other stuff, but like it gets used in sterilized growth medium, which is used to make stem cells, as well as the neuroprocessors and stuff. So you do need mincemeat for that. You also need it for collagen, which gets used in making the gelatin, which you use in like gelatin. Hold on. agar. This comes from gelatin. Yeah. So lots of that stuff gets used in there. So yeah, that was part of that line, and I had set it up, and it was only active for like I think like 3 days, and before I was able to tear it out because I just didn't need it anymore. Partially because I figured out that you could just make fish through HNN, and it was much nicer because the fisher just kept giving me a bunch of garbage, even if I kept trying to set it to not give me garbage, and it kept filling up the drive and then stopped working, and that was really annoying. So after a certain point, I didn't really even use it anymore. So I ripped everything out. So what's really funny too is eventually I kind of meant to actually get around to upgrading charcoal byproduct distillation line. That being said though, we never really needed any of the fluids after a certain point. Especially like once we swept away to not really be using nitrobenzene, like once we went to hog and gene eventually instead, the whole point of charcoal byproducts kind of fell by the wayside. Though it did give us a few very important things like toluene and acetic acid. But we never really needed so much of that stuff, especially once we hit fusion, that it was really worth upgrading. So I never really got around to it. Petrochem really kind of fell by the wayside once we hit. Once we got to fusion, we never really needed that much more petrochem, and we never really had a significant demand on our hog, through gene and hog, that we really needed to do too much stuff. Like eventually I was planning to set up instead of crackers, LCRs. Because LCRs will parallelize. You get less per operation by doing it with LCRs, but they parallelize, whereas crackers don't. So eventually I was planning to do that, but again, we just never really needed that much petrochem to do it. I guess I can go ahead and just remove this, so we don't actually need this anymore. Since I finished tearing out all the setups. There we go. Recycling more drives. We'll use them for something else eventually, I'm sure. So yeah, I think that's probably about it, I think, in general. So I guess instead of talking about things that have been done, I'm going to talk about things that I will be doing. And that'll be tearing out most of these mixers. Considering we can just make the ingot forms, we don't actually need them. There are some things that we can't actually make ingot forms. For example, like barium doesn't have an ingot form just directly, or like a liquid form, I should say. But the funny part is, we can just electrolyze, let's see, we can electrolyze this, and we can make this via a liquid form. So one thing we can do is we can grind this up and then electrolyze the dust to get the barium out, if we want to. Like, that's the same thing I was thinking about doing with, for example, magnesium. As magnesium it has a liquid form, but the only thing you can use with a liquid form is in fusion. You can't actually turn it into anything with a fluid solidifier. So if we want to make magnesium, for instance, we'll have to, I guess we could continue electrolyzing biotite dust for that if we really need it. We could also electrolyze obsidian dust, but we could electrolyze magnesium diboride dust, which would give us boron as well, though we have boron on passive, I believe. I'm pretty sure we have that as a fluid. Maybe it's in the ingot form? No, maybe not. So maybe this would be a good idea then. I thought there was a liquid boron. No, never mind. Okay, so I guess I will do that, for example. So there's like little funny tricks like that where you can't make the element itself, but you can make something that has the element in it and then try and back out from it. So we'll have to do that. I also hate how a bunch of these things are at MV and IV. I really kind of hate the way I set up all these mixers and stuff and how I haven't rebuilt them in a while. So this will be a good excuse to tear all this out and rebuild it in a way that I actually like. And we don't need this anymore either, obviously. This never really kept up with the liquid air vacuum freezers we had anyway. That being said, it really wasn't that important. So I've got even more infrastructure to tear out. We can also tear out, like, I forgot down here, in Deep Mountain Complex. I pulled out virtually all of the LCRs. Effectively, if it makes a fluid that we need, if it makes a precursor fluid, a precursor item, or a fluid, so a fluid in general or a precursor item that's only used in something else, like for example, potassium dichromate and chromium trioxide are only used in PBI line, so we don't actually need these anymore. So those can get torn out, for example. We don't need talic acid either. So a lot of LCRs we can rip out, not all of them. We can also rip out actually styrene butadiene rubber too. So I can just pull this one out too. So we can rip out tons and tons of LCRs and stuff. We had a bunch of extractors over here that we no longer needed either. This was a fluid solidifier, I think, or no, this was just niobium titanium ingots for an extruder. But I'm going to move that somewhere else. Over here we can rip out all of NAC line. We no longer need this either, as we have everything that comes from this on demand, or sorry, not on demand, but in fluid form and being solidified. Lots of stuff over here can be ripped out, like acetylene as well. We don't need that. Like polytetrafluoroethylene. This is a precursor. We don't need this. So this was a lot of fun, just like starting like ripping stuff out. We don't need any of this stuff either because I believe this was just meant to make methanol and hydrochloric acid was what was I using this for? I forget. Oh, this was also feeding us silicon dust too for the silicone rubber. We don't need biphenyl dust either, for example, because that's used in PCB coolant, which we have unlimited of. All this stuff can get torn away. We can remove this, remove this. So this was a lot of fun. Tearing out a bunch of infrastructure and realizing I have a lot of extra space and stuff too. Like indium as well, we can tear out. We can tear out all of Platline as well. We can tear out like all of these things here. So I have lots and lots of stuff I have to do more demo work with. I need to figure out which one of those I can tear out. So this gets removed as well. So I'll have lots and lots of space. The whole point of me going on and on about this is just how much space we'll have available to us. So moving into post-tank doesn't solve every single problem. There are plenty of materials post-tank that can't be done via fluid solidification and stuff. But that's fine because the amount of infrastructure we can rip out with tank means that we'll have plenty of space to build those things. We have more things over here we can probably tear out as well. Like crystal ingots as well. We have like a lot of these things over here for crystal matrix ingots, for example. Which we have, that's also a liquid form, so we don't need any of that stuff. It's a lot of fun, and it's going to be a significant change. I did mention this, like the last video, that hitting post tank would fundamentally change the way the base works. Instead, would be focused on things that can't be done with fluids. Would tear lots of fluids and things that, like anything that's fluid based would go out. The fusion reactors, for instance, will never turn on again. Obviously, I'm not going to remove them because I think it's really cool how they're over here. I think they look super cool and it's fun to be over here. So there's no point in me tearing it all out. I may actually set up a Mark III fusion reactor for Einsteinium, as in the only way to get this, the fluid version, is to use a fusion reactor with californium and berkelium, but that would require me to set up a Mark III fusion reactor for legitimately, for only a couple of minutes, enough to make 1 bucket of Einsteinium, and stabilized Einsteinium is only used in one thing at this stage, and that's making abyssal energy cores. And this is made in blocks of 32, sets of 32 from a tier 6 miner. So this really isn't all that bad. So I don't really know if it's really worth setting it up. Maybe I'll get around to doing it at some point, just so I can have the full set. So yeah, what was that I was just thinking about? That's my bad. Maybe I'll remember if I, Oh, I remember what it was. So if we come over to the microverse projector, I had a bunch of subnets over here with drives and stuff. The problem is I was struggling with an issue where I have some of these items that are in here on demand. Like, for example, stabilized Einsteinium, like I just mentioned, is actually done through a crafting recipe with a miner. So it can be done through consecutive crafts from AE, like I mentioned last time. However, there was a problem with it. Because it was going into a subnet, it wasn't counting the craft as complete. So it wasn't really ending that craft, which was really annoying. So I just moved those drives that were part of the subnet. If we go back over to AE area, you guys will notice that there's a bunch of drives that aren't fluid ones. And these are like holdovers from the EBF networks that I pulled out. They're holdovers and stuff for or things that I moved in. For example, like I think where did I put it? I don't know. It's somewhere over here. There are various. Here they are. the things that went into the subnets on the microminers now instead just get dumped straight into the system. But they do get stored here, so they're still not dumped into the general drives. They're still dumped into specific drives. They're just on a different network now. Because as much as I have a great love of subnets at this stage, I really do. I love subnets. But in that specific scenario, subnets was kind of not a great decision, I guess, just because of it added extra complexity and extra annoyances and stuff. As for over here, I guess we'll go ahead and talk about ore processing and the future of ore processing. Considering we have virtually every element on infinite amounts of it, ore processing isn't entirely necessary, or it's a lot less necessary at this stage. There are still many things that we actually need that will always be done through ore processing. For example, like monazite, for example, we want to make that. If we want to sift that, like anything like a gem based, for example, like this can't be autoclaved, or no, it can't be autoclaved. So we can get the dust and stuff, but if we want to get the gems through the sifters, this can't be done. Monazite cannot be done through. There's no liquid form of monazite, and there's no way to like make the dust and then autoclave it on passive. You can't like mix it or anything. You can only ever get it from ore processing. So this is just one example. Another one is like rare earth, as in you actually need rare earth to make terbium. It's part of the line. So we're gonna need rare earth and stuff. This can actually, we can either make this through ore processing, and try and keep some of it around, or we can just extract it from extra monazite, for example. So we can have the monazite gems, or we can grind it up outside of ore processing. That's probably the plan. What I'll be doing with that. So we are effectively, ore processing will still be necessary. It'll be necessary for fewer things, but it will still be necessary. So I'm not gonna like tear it out or really like remove machines that won't be needed anymore. There's just no point in doing that. It'll just sit here doing nothing. And this space was designated for ore processing too. So it's fine to stay here, even if it won't do too much stuff in the future. But when I do put down, miners for monazite, it still will produce other elements and stuff. So many things will eventually just be going into voiding drives. We have a lot of things that are in voiding drives right now, and many of them just won't get used. So, it's kind of, it took a while for us to get here, to the point where ore processing would be, obsolete. And it's really funny too. When I was thinking about building it, but I really had a thought in the back of my mind was, but ore processing will become obsolete once we have tank and stuff, and we're not that far from tank. And that was like 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, which goes to show just how wrong I was. Tank was a significant, a very significant milestone. And for many people who play Monifactory, it's like the goal. The goal is, we hit tank and then we're done, which is fair enough. It took me 440 hours or so. It took me almost exactly 20 days to hit tank. So it's been a long road. It's been a long road getting here, and we still have a lot more to go. We're not done yet, like I mentioned in the clip. We still have quantum chests. So I guess if you guys want to help me review that, we can take a look at our next goal, and that's creative quantum chest. This is our next big thing, and as you guys can see, this is exceptionally crazy. It's epic crafting. I believe it's one of the only few epic crafting recipes. I think there's only a couple. Yeah, there's only 3. So creative quantum chest requires UIV field stuff. It requires multiple max tier circuits for creative energy data, creative storage data, quantum tank data, which we already have. We'll need to get a couple more of these as well. We only have 1. A bunch of monium. We'll need the max machine hull, field stabilized omnic pulsar compound, which requires UE, a bunch of stuff. Quasi-stable neutron stars, which can only be made in the microverse projectors with gravity stars, which for a while we only made via microminers, but now we have neutronium, so we can make them this way. So we have and we can look at a UIV field generator. and it requires elts and stuff and infinity frames. Holmium UIV. Holmium is actually a really interesting material. This is another material that actually cannot be done via a liquid form either, and it's made by, let's see, holmium dust comes from setting up magnetic capacitor dust, as well as, I think there's another place you get it from. It comes from the alien scrap line, from what it does. So if we look at alien scrap is another Monifactory specific thing, and this gives you like ruined hulls, and ruined machine parts, and these get processed down into various materials. Most of the stuff we don't really care about, but like magnetic capacitor dust and the holmium oxide glass dust, this just gets electrolyzed a couple of times. So if we look at this, we get ruined capacitors, which we grind down into crushed capacitor dust, which only gets. So we have another thing. We have another line here that we'll have to do. And then what was the other UIB field generator? If we look at this, we're going to need infinity frames, which requires infinity rods. I don't believe there's a liquid form of this either. Yeah, there isn't. So we have to make dormant infinity compound, and this requires actually activated netherite line and stuff. Eternal catalyst requires a bunch of this other crap and stuff, a bunch of mote of omniums, which we can fluid solidified back from liquid omnium, which will be good, so that'll be something we'll have to set up as well. Infinity. So we have lots and lots of stuff to do. We have obviously a great deal of things to do. Primal mana, that's not too bad. I'm curious what else. Causality exempt monic heavy plating. And this requires timeless monic heavy plating, which requires a bunch of this other crap, which requires monium, which comes from more the T12 miners. You don't fluid solidify this stuff either. So that'll be, well, I guess we might have to put some of those miners on passive. But the interesting stage, the fun part now, is that we can put a lot of micro miners on passive if we want to. I'm not sure if I'm going to put them on passive. I mean, there are requesters, so we might be able to use that and just use like ME requesters, ZPM, we can have them. We can keep, basically it allows the AE system to automatically use our on-demand system as a way of passiving things. And for the micro miners, that might be the play, just to have it keep a certain amount of some materials in the system, rather than attempting to set up miners actually passively, as that sounds like it would be atrocious. But maybe we'll do it just because it'll be a fun challenge, It seems like something that could be interesting. So I know that tank seems like it could be the end, but obviously it isn't. Not for us. We're going all the way to quantum chest. I think it's gonna probably take me as much time to hit chest as it did to hit tank. Even though we only have a couple more voltage tiers to go, as we are in the early UV area. We have UHV, UEV, UIV, and max. That's like what, like 4. More voltage tiers, and UV is what, 8 or so. I guess we can take a look at the quest. The quest book, opening the quest book always freezes my game for a little bit, so hopefully it doesn't crash. There we go. We can talk a little about progression and stuff. So we are right here. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4 more circuit tiers to go. We have some wetwares and stuff, but we do need to start monium. Which this is going to be interesting. Very interesting. Quadria, multi-dimensional CPU chips, multi-dimensional quasi-stable neutron stars, unactivated multi-dimensional CPU wafers. So we've got lots of stuff to do. This is going to be fun. I have to set up, I can go ahead and do this, I guess. Yeah, so I can't believe we hit tank. It's been a long time coming, guys. And I guess, we'll go ahead and do a quick flyover of the base. I know I've been walking around a lot and stuff, but maybe it'll be a good idea to give a good flyover of the base, because this is a tank base, post-tank base, I guess, or in the process of becoming a post-tank base. So we have our on-demand areas over here, as well as our subatomic digital assembler. It doesn't really fit over here, because it's not really an on-demand thing, since it doesn't really consume anything. I thought it did, as you guys saw during the clip. I thought it would consume it, and we'd have to send a bunch of universe hearts, but Yeah, we didn't. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and stop talking now and give a quick little silent flyover of the base. All right, guys. Well, that's the flyover. That's everything. I hope you guys have had a good week. I guess so. That'll probably be it for today. I've gone on for more than long enough at this stage. um, I hope you guys have had a good week. Mine's obviously been really good. Um, lots of big progress, big progress, big money moves. Um, so I hope you guys have had a good week, and I hope you guys will have a good upcoming week. And I will see you all again next week.